welcome to week 11, day 2. Today is June 2nd. Today we are going to continue our volume review by going over finding the volume of a cone. So you'll click on your classwork, you'll scroll down. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did post an agenda just in case you want to take a look at what we have planned for the week. It's there. You'll scroll down to day 2 and you'll find our lesson. So again, just reminding you that you need to use the scientific calculator for pi. So you can use the link, or if you use your phone, just turn it horizontally and it's next to the word rand. Some of you were just reaching out for some help, and you need to make sure if you're using your phone, you put the number and then multiply and then the pi key. If you don't put the multiplication, then it's just going to tell you what pi equals instead of actually doing the multiplication for you. Okay, so just something that came up today in my feedback in case that happened to anyone else. There is another video here for support if needed. It's only a 3-minute video, so if you need extra help, it walks you through how to find volume of a cone as well. The only thing is, in this support video they use 3.14 for pi, but we know that we do not use that, so that would just be the only note I would take on this video. It takes you through exactly what you need to do, just we don't use pi, we use our scientific calculator. Okay, so your lesson is here. I'm going to use the bigger version. This should be pretty quick because we already did cones back in like November. So warm up, I asked you to find the radius given a volume. Notice it's in terms of pi, and also the height of 5 inches of a cylinder. So we have our steps, right? We identify what we're given, height of 5, volume of 320 pi inches cubed. We're noticing that it's in terms of pi, and we are looking for the radius. We write our formula, we plug in what we know. We can inverse by dividing by 5 pi to cancel out 5 and pi on the right side, and then also canceling out the pi on the left. We'll then be left with the quotient of 320 divided by 5, which is 64. And in order to isolate r to get it by itself, we have to inverse squaring, which would be square root. So we inverse both sides, and we'll get the square root of 64 is 8. So our final answer, the radius, is 8 inches. You guys did pretty well with that. There were a few of you that did not listen to the directions of the questions, where some of them asked for the diameter instead of the radius. So you forgot to multiply your final answer by 2. So just be careful what the question's asking for. Always go back and make sure you answered the question. All right, so here's a review for cones. Okay, if you remember when we first started, I told you that a cone is a third of a cylinder. So the formula for cone is very similar to cylinder. We're just going to take a third of it. And when I say a third, that means multiplication. Now, when we were in school and you all had the scientific calculator, it was very easy for us to put in this fraction because we had the key available. Okay, the way you can kind of manipulate this formula to make it easier for us, especially for using your phone calculator, is by taking the cylinder formula and then dividing it by 3. It's the same as finding a third of a cylinder. Okay, and this just makes it easier because you can eliminate the fraction, which you'll see as I go through our model, and then just kind of work with the same thing we've been doing with the cylinder. So you'll see that come into play, but you will notice that I often refer back to this formula instead of this one, because if you try to use your phone calculator, 1/3 is not, it's a repeating decimal, right? So if you use a third and you try to do your calculations, sometimes the division, it winds up multiplying first instead of dividing, and it just winds up, I've seen too many calculation errors in that way, so I would recommend using this formula just given the circumstance. If you have a scientific calculator where you can put that 1/3 as a fraction in, then go right ahead, but for my model, I'm going to use this because I know majority of us are using our phones or just a general calculator, okay? So if we keep going in the lesson, show you the formula, we have our first example. So I will write that here. So we are given that the height is 10 centimeters and the radius is 5 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing we've already done, which is first identifying what we are given, which is what we basically just did, right? Again, I'm going to use the formula, the second one I showed you. So pi times r squared times the height, which is our cylinder formula, divided by 3. Okay, I'm going to plug in what we know. So V equals pi times our radius is 5 squared times the height, which is 10, and then all over 3. Okay, so for this, we're just going to do order of operations. We would do our exponents first, so let's do 5 squared. That's going to give us pi times 25 times 10 over 3. Then we can multiply 25 and 10 because that's just a quick, easy mental math. So we have V equals pi times 250 over 3. And then at this point, what you would want to do is you can simplify your fraction if possible to leave it in terms of pi. Okay, so that would be, for example, I would just rewrite it using the commutative property. We can't simplify 250 over 3, so it would just stay like that. So it would be 250 pi over 3, okay, and then cubic centimeters. Or if you divided 250 by 3, you'll see that it's actually a repeating decimal. So you could write 83.3 pi cubic centimeters. That's kind of an ugly 3, so let's fix that. Okay, so we're leaving it in terms of pi because if we go back to our question, it said to leave in terms of pi. So we're not going to go any further for this question. I actually didn't like this being the first example because normally this fraction here, you can simplify to a whole number and it winds up being like a nice final answer for you in terms of pi. This one's just a little ugly because it's a repeating decimal. But that's your quick review of finding the volume of a cone. If you had to go a step further to find the exact volume or approximate out of pi, then you would just either take 250 divided by 3, multiply it by pi, or do 83.3 repeating, multiply it by pi, and get that answer and round to the given place value. Okay, so there's our first example. Everything I just showed you is in your lesson here. There's our steps, okay? And here is another example for us to do. So I think this one actually comes out a little nicer, so you'll see what I'm talking about, why that one kind of bothered me. I'm just going to use my same diagram and just change our numbers. This way, save some time. Okay, so in the next example, our height now is going to be 18 feet. And our radius is going to be 5 again. It's so weird how that happens. The numbers wind up being the same. Okay, so let's write our formula. V equals pi times r squared times the height over 3. I'm going to plug in the information that I was given. So V equals pi times our radius is 5 to the second power times our height of 18 over 3. Okay, so again, order of operations, exponents first, we just saw that before. Pi times 25 times 18 over 3. We'll do this multiplication first, 25 times 18. So we'll get V equals 25 times 18 will give us 450. I'm going to use the commutative property and just put it in front of pi because that's normally how we see it. Over 3. Now, we can simplify this fraction because 450 can be divided by 3. So let's do that because it'll wind up looking much nicer when we write our answer in terms of pi. So 450 divided by 3 is going to give us 150 pi. Now, if this question asks us to leave our answer in terms of pi, this is where we can stop. But in this particular question, they actually want us to round to the 10th place. So that's what we're going to do now. And in order to do that, you actually multiply 150 times pi. Okay, so remember, if you're using your phone, put that multiplication symbol in between, or else you might get just what pi is equivalent to. So here we would get 471.23889 and so on. It would keep going. And then I would round. So my final answer will be 471 point to the 10th place. So 3 would keep my 2 there. So 2 and we were feet, so feet cubed. Okay, so there's your example. This was a much nicer one. See how that simplified very nicely. That usually is what happens. Most of the time it's not a fraction, but you know, you never know. Once in a while it comes up like we just saw. So formula, plug in the information, exponents first, multiply the two numbers, use the commutative property, rewrite it if you want. Simplify the fraction with the numbers. That's your answer in terms of pi. And then if you have to round to a given place value, go that extra step and multiply the two, round to the place value provided. All right. So how could this be any different? Well, once in a while, they're not going to give you the radius, right? Sometimes they might give you the diameter. And most of you were doing pretty good with that. You were being very mindful of paying attention to what the question was asking for, but there were still some of you that got tricked and picked the incorrect answer on yesterday's form. So just pay attention to those details, okay? There's another example for you to try here, answer on the following slides, and then there's two for you to try again. Here is a challenge. Okay, you can look through that. I'll go back just to show you. So it's a cone and a cylinder put together, and they want you to find the volume of the entire object. What I point out in the following slide is that the answer choices are in terms of pi. So when you are calculating, you don't need to go that extra step of multiplying by pi and having to round and all those things. You're just going to leave your answer in terms of pi. So you would find the volume of the cone and add it to the volume of the cylinder in terms of pi, and you would find your answer. Okay? All right, so I just want to go over one that gives you a diameter, just so that you can see that. All right, so we'll do this one. Perfect. Okay, so our height this time is going to be 13 centimeters, and instead of a radius, we're going to be given a diameter of 12. Okay, so we know that our height's 13, we know our diameter is 12. In our formula, we need a radius. So we have to think, okay, well, if my diameter is 12, then that means my radius is 6. Now I have all the information I need to find the volume of this cone. So I'm going to write V equals pi times, I'm not going to use 12 because that's my diameter, I'm going to use 6, which is the radius. 6 squared times, our height was 13, over 3. Exponents first, so 6 squared. V equals pi times 36 times 13 over 3. We're going to multiply first, 36 times 13. That equals, you know what, I'm going to use the commutative property like I showed you before, just because it just is nicer when it looks that way. 468, that's the product of 36 times 13, and I'm going to put pi on the right side, over 3. Then I look at this fraction, I say, okay, can I simplify this? Will this come out to, can I make this a simpler fraction? Which I can. 468 divided by 3 equals 156. Okay, so there's our answer in terms of pi. But we are asked to round to the nearest tenths again. So we're going to take that extra step and multiply 156 times pi. So we're going to do V equals 156 times pi is 490.08845 and so on. But if we round to the nearest tenths, our final answer will be V equals 490 point, let's see, 8 would make the 0 go up, so 1, and we were centimeters, so centimeters cubed. Remember, we're in volume now, so our units should always be cubic units. All right, so that's pretty much it. Definitely check out that challenge question because you guys have all the information and understanding to answer this. I'm going to see if you guys could do that on your own. And then you have your exit ticket for the day. Okay, there is an error analysis question at the end, question 7, where you are going to describe and correct the error. So it is a short answer. Be mindful that if you answer it in the form, it may mark you incorrect at first, but all the Regents teachers go into the forum, all the teachers I should say, go into the forum and grade your work individually. So if that happens, just be mindful, we will be correcting the mistake and grade you accordingly. Okay? All right, guys, hope you're staying safe. Take care.